Accounting Enrichment Society, also known as AcES, is an interest organization of De La Salle University Das Marinas under its accountancy departments. AcES, which is operated by BSA and BSM students, is here to assist their fellow students from the same accountancy and management accounting programs with their studies, mainly their accounting-related lessons. The students are given enrichment classes they could attend to, and extra lectures, tutorial sessions, and learning materials which may all help them understand accounting concepts easily. This academic year, AcES is stepping it up by creating YouTube tutorial videos about accounting concepts. Fun, interactive, enlightening, and broadening. AcES YouTube videos are surely not just another extra lecture and tutorial session, but also a fun and interactive way of learning.
For today's video, we will be discussing inventories for manufacturing. And to provide an overview, manufacturing is a form of business where the entity buys raw materials and converts them into finished products to be sold. There is an added value in the process of converting the raw materials since it will be converted into a more useful product. Manufacturing is much more complex compared to merchandising in terms of operating cycle, inventory, and income statement. In differentiating them, let us first proceed with the operating cycle. So in merchandising, the cycle only consists of buying and then selling and then collecting the cash from the customer to purchase again another inventory. Unlike in manufacturing, where it consists of buying raw materials, processing the raw materials, selling the finished products, and then collecting the cash from the customer to purchase again another raw materials. So, in terms of inventory, merchandising business only has one inventory account, unlike in manufacturing where there are several accounts. Later, we will be emphasizing the inventory accounts of a manufacturing as well as the manufacturing costs. So lastly, for the income statement, both merchandising and manufacturing have the similar accounts, such as sales. However, the only distinct difference is the cost of goods sold. And the computation for the cost of goods sold in manufacturing is much more complex since there are many inventory accounts. Now let us proceed to the inventory accounts in manufacturing. There are 4 inventory accounts, and the first one is raw materials inventory. From the account name itself, it is an inventory for the raw materials which are needed to make the product. And for example, leather to make bags or shoes, textile for clothes. Next is work in process inventory, which represents the goods that are still in the process of manufacturing. Note, still in the process. Okay, and the third one is finished goods inventory, which include those finished products that are ready to be sold. And lastly is the factory supplies inventory, which includes the materials that are used to make the products or maybe finalize the products, but they do not form an integral part in the product itself. An example would be nails, screws, and varnish. Now let us explain and differentiate the elements and the flow of the manufacturing costs. So for the concepts or terms of the elements, we have first the direct materials, which are the materials that are directly used in making the product and forms an integral part of the product. So for example, the cost of the wood that are used in making the table or cabinet, as well as the costs of the textiles that are used in making clothes. Second one is direct labor. So this refers to the compensation for the workers that are directly involved in manufacturing the product. For example, wages of shoemakers and wages of those who operate machines that are needed to make the product. Lastly is the manufacturing overhead or factory overhead, which includes all the costs that are incurred in manufacturing the product that are not direct materials nor direct labor. The manufacturing overhead or the factory overhead is subdivided into three categories: the factory expenses, the indirect materials, and indirect labor. So for the factory expenses, it includes rent expense, factory repairs and maintenance, depreciation expense. And next is the indirect materials, which include the cost of the factory supplies inventory, such as nails, varnish, as again, they do not form an integral part in the product. So lastly, for the indirect labor, this is the cost that is incurred for the workers that are not directly involved in making the product, but are important in factory operations, such as wages of factory supervisors and guards. For the flow of the manufacturing costs, we have the prime cost, the conversion cost, the product cost, and the period cost. So first, for the prime cost, it is the sum of the cost of direct materials and direct labor, whereas the conversion cost is the sum of the costs of direct labor and factory overhead. So for the product cost, or also known as manufacturing costs, it includes the direct materials, the direct labor, and the factory overhead. For the period cost, it includes all distributive administrative expenses or selling expenses, such as salaries, delivery expenses, and others. So to further explain, as for an additional information, administrative expenses refers to expenses that are incurred which are not directly associated with manufacturing the products and not directly associated with regards to selling them, such as rent and utilities expense. Unlike with selling expenses, it refers to expenses that are incurred before and after sales, and for example, marketing expenses and commissions.
So, hello everyone, my name is Paul Edson Silva and I am your tutor for today's topic. So, our topic for today is manufacturing. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, let's answer this problem. So, Bataan Leather Company is a top-notch manufacturing company that creates shoes. However, despite having a lot of sales, their profit is still insufficient due to misappropriation of accounts. You, a certified bookkeeper, were hired by Bataan Leather Factory to determine the different kinds of expenses and costs. The following accounts are found in the ledger of Bataan Leather Factory. So first, the account for depreciation of machinery. So this type of expense or cost is it is considered a manufacturing cost but only factory overhead since the depreciation is not part of the product. So next is the bad debt expenses. So for the bad debt expenses, we have selling and general expenses. So since the bad debts are not part of the product or not considered in the process of creating the product, it is considered as a selling and general expenses. So next is electricity expense. So in this example, the electricity expense is considered as selling and general expenses. But we must also consider the fact that electricity is also part of the utilities used in the factory. So here in our example, it is also considered as part of factory expenses if it is specified that it is part of the factory expenses. So generally, it is considered as selling and general expenses. So next is the factory insurance expense. So for our factory insurance expenses, it is considered as a manufacturing costs, factory overhead. So this is a manufacturing cost since the factory is used to create the product, but it is not a part of the product. It is considered as indirect or only factory overhead. So next is the oil for machines. So for the oil for machines, we consider this also as a manufacturing costs, but only a factory overhead, So why factory overhead? Since the machines are only used um, to create the product, and the oil used for the machines is to make the machines operate properly. So it is considered as factory overhead or indirect costs. So next is legal expenses. So for our legal expenses, we consider this a selling and general expense. So particularly the general expense. So next is freight out. So freight out is also called as delivery expense. So delivery expenses is considered as a selling expense. So we consider this expense or cost as selling and general expenses. Next is advertising expense. So we all know that advertising is part of the selling process of the company. So here we consider this expense or type of expense as a selling and general expense. So next is the leather and soles. So the answer here is manufacturing costs, direct materials. So why is it direct material? So we know that Bataan Leather Company is a manufacturing company that creates shoes. So leather and soles are part of the shoes. So we can see that in the product there are leathers and soles. So we consider this as direct materials. So next is freight in. So freight in is manufacturing costs, direct materials. So freight in is also a part of the materials in a way that it is used as the freight for the delivery of the materials. So as an example here is if we pay freight on the raw materials. So in here we consider freight as direct materials. So next is the sales commission. So same as the advertising expenses, sales commissions is part of the selling and general expenses, specifically the sale expenses. So in here, we will consider sales commission as part of our selling processes in our entity. So office supplies use. So based on its um, account title, it is considered as selling and general expenses, particularly the general expenses since it is an office supplies. Next is the delivery truck insurance expense. So delivery truck insurance expense is part of the selling process or selling method of the entity. So in other words, the insurance used to deliver the product is considered as selling expense. So janitorial services in the factory. So even though it is a janitorial services, since the janitorial services were used in the factory, so it is not part of the the materials or the labor, but it is part of the factory overhead. Next is the depreciation of office equipment. We consider depreciation of office equipment as selling and general expenses, or specifically general expenses, coming from the word office. So next is the factory supervisor's salary. So factory supervisor salary is part of the manufacturing costs factory overhead. So since the supervisors or supervisor is not the one that creates a product but only supervises, it is not part of the direct labor. Next is the representation expense of the company president. So we consider this as a selling and general expenses since it is not part of the manufacturing process of the company. Next is the assembler's wage. So in here we will consider this as part of the direct labor or manufacturing costs direct labor. So assembler is the one that assemble all of the parts or components of the shoes. So in here we will consider this as a part of the manufacturing costs or the creation of the product. So since the assemblers are the one that directly creates the product, it is considered as direct labor. And lastly, the water expense. So, we consider this as selling and general expenses. Generally, it is considered as selling and general expenses. But, it can also be part of the factory or manufacturing costs if it is specified that it is part of the factory. So, in here, we have answered the problem, and I hope that you have determined the right type of expenses or costs. So let us now move on to the computational part of the manufacturing process in our topic. So let's answer this question. So Roller's Manufacturing Company is a manufacturing entity that creates bicycles. However, after 2 years operations, their main accountant resigns a day before the year end. Due to time constraints, a certified bookkeeper was hired to account their income statement for internal purposes. Manufacturing costs and other accounts of Roller's Manufacturing Company appeared in its December 31, 2021 trial balance as follows. So, dito natin makikita yung mga accounts and yung mga amounts sila. So, without further ado, let's begin this computational process. So, ito, may nakahanda na akong mga format. So, ang pwede natin gawin is, habang nagsosolve ako is, mag-solve din kayo sa sa Excel files nyo. So, ayan. So, dito may hinahanap tayong required. So, compute for the total manufacturing costs, cost of goods manufactured, cost of goods sold, gross profit, and net income. So, dito, for raw materials beginning inventory, we will use this beginning. So, ang beginning ng 2021 is ang ending ng 2020. So, dito, kukuha natin yung 88,000. So, add natin net cost of purchases. Ang purchases natin is, ito, raw material purchases for 1,200,000. Then, add natin yung freight in. Ang freight in natin is 24,000. Ayan. Total natin siya. Ito natin yung freight in. Then, proceed tayo sa purchase discounts. So, for our purchase discounts, ang purchase discounts natin is, and ang purchase returns naman natin, or purchase returns and allowances, so since wala tayong allowances, purchase returns na lang muna. So, 4,800. So, ito, total din natin siya. Kaso, negative sum. Since less siya. Ayan. So, ang total niya is 1,205,100. So, to compute for the total materials available for sale, i-add natin yung beginning inventory for raw materials. Add natin yung nakuha natin kaninang balance. So, ang ating total materials available for sale is 1,293,100. So, ayan. So, last naman natin yung raw materials ending inventory. So, ang ending inventory natin ay ang end of 2021. So, ang ating materials is 95,000 for the end of 2021. So, meron tayong negative 95,000. So, para makuha natin yung raw materials used, so to compute for that is, minus natin yung total materials available for sale sa ending inventory ng raw materials. So, dito, ayan, 1,198,100. So, sa direct labor, may nakalagay naman na dito. Para makuha natin yung manufacturing expenses, is kuha natin yung sum ng machine depreciation, supervision, factory heat, light, and power, and indirect materials. So, ayan lang kuha natin total. Ayan, 1,852,750. So, para makuha natin yung total manufacturing costs, sum natin yan. Sum natin yung raw materials used, yung direct labor, and yung manufacturing expenses. So, meron tayong 4,550,850. So sa requirements natin sa number A is ito. 4,550,850. So, add naman natin dito yung work in process beginning inventory. So, dito, para makuha natin yung beginning inventory sa work in process, kukuha natin yung work in process inventories sa end of 2020. So, ito ay may 65,000 na amount. Then, i-add lang natin to sa total manufacturing costs para makuha yung total cost placed in process. So, to further get the cost of goods manufactured is, i-less lang natin yung ending inventory ng work in process. So, ang ending inventory natin ay nasa end of 2021. So, meron tayong 78,500. So, para makuha siya is, i-minus pala natin ang total cost placed in process sa work in process ending inventory. Ayan. Ayan ang ating cost of goods manufactured. 4,537,350. So, ayan, may isa na tayo sa number 2 for our requirements. Ayan. So, para naman makuha ang cost of goods sold, nakahanda na rin akong format para gawin yan. Ayan, para naman makuha natin ang ating statement of cost of goods sold is, kunin muna natin ang ating finished goods beginning. So, ang ating finished goods beginning ay nasa end of 2020 na may amount of 320,000. Since ang nakalagay dito is add cost of goods manufactured, kunin naman natin yung na-compute natin kanina ng cost of goods manufactured, which is ito. So, ang gagawin lang natin is i-add lang natin sila para makuha yung COGS or cost of goods available for sale. Ayan. And next naman tayo. I-minus naman natin yung finished goods ending. So, kuha natin yung finished goods ending, which is yung end of 2021 na 250,000. So, pag nakuha natin yan, makakuha na natin yung cost of goods sold. So, ang gagawin natin is, i-minus natin itong COGS or cost of goods available for sale sa finished goods ending, which is 4,607,350. So, ayan ang ating cost of goods available for sale. So, ayan. So, tapos na natin kunin yung cost of goods manufactured at cost of goods sold. So, ang ating cost of goods sold ay 4,607,350. Okay, so ngayon nakuha na natin yung ating cost of goods manufactured and cost of goods sold. Let's proceed to income statement. So, for our gross sales, so kapag walang binagit sa problem na net sales or gross sales, let's assume na gross sales yun. So, ito ay 6 million. Ayan, kunin naman natin yung sa sales discounts. With 8,900. Then, i-add natin yung sales returns and allowances. So, meron tayong sales returns na 18,500 and sales allowances na 25,000. So, i-add natin itong sales discounts and sales returns, allowances. So, totally, meron silang 52,400. So, itong 52,400 is minus natin sa gross sales para makuha nga rin net sales. Ayan, so meron tayong na-compute kanina na cost of goods sold. So, kukunin lang din natin siya. It is 4,607,350. So, para makuha ang ating gross profit, i-minus natin itong net sales sa ating cost of goods sold. So, meron tayong 1,340,250 for our gross profit. So, ayan. Nakuha na natin yung requirement D, which is 1,340,250 for our gross profit. So, dito mapapansin natin na meron tayong operating expenses, selling and administrative or general. So, para makuha ang ating selling is, isum natin yung mga selling expenses. O ano ba dito yung mga selling expenses? So, dito makikita natin is sales salaries, unang-una. Advertising, and delivery expenses. Ayan. Totally, meron siyang 330,000. Add natin yung administrative or general expense. Meron tayo ditong office supplies used, at office salaries. So, meron siyang 87,850. So, tulad ng ginawa natin sa sales returns and allowances and discounts is isasam natin silang dalawa. So, totally meron silang 417,850. So, ayan. Ito yung tunay nating operating expenses. So, para makuha ang ating net income, i-minus natin yung gross profit sa total operating expenses. So, overall, meron silang 922,400. So, ayan. So, that ends our computational process in this topic. And I hope that we have helped you on computing such problems. Thank you for listening.
Kamusta mga ka-ACES? May natutunan naman ba kayo at nag-enjoy naman ba kayo? You can comment your experiences, learnings alongside with your questions sa comment section below para agad rin namin itong masagot. Now that we are done discussing the inventories manufacturing, in the next video, we will discuss batch transactions together with your next batch of tutors. Muli, kami ang Accounting Enrichment Society. Kita-kits sa susunod na video, and please make sure to click the subscription button and hit the notification bell below para updated kayo sa mga upcoming videos na amin pa ang ila-launch that will surely benefit all of you. You can also like our Facebook page and follow us on our Instagram for more updates.